Ethan first noticed it at dinner with his sister. She had laughed at something he'd said, something about the burnt garlic bread, and her laugh came out wrong. Not just too loud or too forced, but identical to the one she'd used a week before. The same stuttering cadence, the same pitch rise at the end, the same pause afterward like she was waiting for applause. It was like hearing a recording. He brushed it off, thinking maybe he was just tired from work. But when she leaned in to grab her wine glass, her smile lingered on her face just a beat too long. Wide, frozen, almost pasted on. He could swear her eyes didn't blink the entire time. The garlic bread burned black in the oven, but neither of them moved to take it out. She just kept smiling, and Ethan felt the first cold pinprick of something he didn't yet dare call fear. The next morning, Ethan stopped by his parents' house. His father greeted him at the door with a clap on the shoulder and the same words he always used. "Good to see you, son. You're looking strong." Ethan smiled, but something in the back of his mind tightened. He remembered, clear as day, his father saying the exact same thing the last time, word for word, with the same pause between "see you" and "son." At breakfast, his mother joined in. She set a plate in front of him and said, "You've always loved these, haven't you? Scrambled eggs." But the phrase, it was the same phrasing she'd used last week and the week before that. Not "I made your favorite," or "hope you like this." Always. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" He tried to joke about it, to break the script. "I'm actually trying to cut back on eggs," he said. But she didn't laugh. She didn't even frown. She just stared at him for a long, too long moment before finally saying, flatly, "You've always loved these, haven't you?" The fork trembled in his hand. That evening, Ethan met his best friend Mark for a drink at their usual bar. The place was noisy, cluttered with the usual Thursday crowd, but sitting across from Mark felt strangely silent. They talked about work, sports, nothing special. But halfway through a story about a client, Mark froze. Just for a second, but it was long enough. His hand stayed hovering above his beer, his lips parted mid-word. His eyes locked on Ethan's, unblinking, as though something behind them had jammed. Then, just like that, he resumed. Same tone, same gesture, no acknowledgement of the pause. Ethan laughed nervously. "You okay, man? You glitched out for a second." Mark tilted his head, smiled. "Glitched out for a second." The exact same words. Same cadence. He raised his glass. "Glitched out for a second." He said it a third time. Not laughing, not even blinking. Just repeating it, with that same pasted-on smile Ethan had seen on his sister. The noise of the bar suddenly felt far away, muffled, as though he were underwater. Ethan excused himself, went to the bathroom, and locked the door. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. When Ethan got home, he tried to convince himself it was stress, lack of sleep, an overactive imagination. But then, just before midnight, he caught his reflection in the darkened TV screen. Not his own reflection, at least, not alone. Behind him, in the reflection, his sister's face flickered for the briefest instant. Not smiling this time, just watching. Her eyes glowed faintly, like twin pinpoints of pale light. He spun around. The living room was empty. But when he turned back to the TV, the glow lingered in the reflection a moment longer before vanishing, leaving only his pale, terrified face staring back. That night, he barely slept. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every shadow looked too long, too still. And sometime in the dead hours, he swore he heard voices whispering in unison from the hallway outside his bedroom door. The following weekend, Ethan's family insisted on a get-together. "Just dinner," his sister said on the phone, her tone too bright, too rehearsed. He almost declined, but curiosity, or dread, dragged him there. When he arrived, everyone was already seated at the long dining table. His parents, his sister, Mark, even a few cousins he hadn't seen in years. They turned their heads toward him in perfect unison, smiling in perfect sync. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, as though a switch had flipped, they all said together, "Good to see you, Ethan." The same words, the same rhythm, their voices overlapping like a choir reciting lines from a play. He stood frozen in the doorway, the smell of food wafting toward him, roast chicken, potatoes, green beans. Normal food, normal scene. But their eyes never left him, and not one of them blinked. Finally, his mother gestured stiffly to the empty chair at the head of the table. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" she said. The others echoed her. You've always loved these, haven't you? The room seemed to tilt, the walls pressing closer, the words closing in like a chant. Ethan forced himself into the chair, pulse hammering. No one moved until he picked up his fork. Then, like actors following a cue, they all began eating at once. The clinking of silverware should have been comforting, but the rhythm was too perfect. Each scrape of fork against plate fell in time, like a metronome ticking away seconds. He tried to break it. He set his fork down loudly. Instant silence. Every head at the table turned toward him in eerie unison, eyes wide and unblinking. No one breathed. The silence pressed against his skull, thick, suffocating. Ethan's throat tightened. He forced a weak laugh. Guess I'm not that hungry. Then, just as suddenly, the others resumed eating. Same synchronized clinking, same mechanical precision. But none of them touched their food. Forks lifted, lowered, scraped. The chicken and beans remained untouched on every plate. It wasn't eating. It was mimicry. Ethan couldn't take it anymore. He muttered something about needing air and pushed back his chair. No one stopped him. No one even looked up. He slipped out to the porch, shaking, trying to breathe. The night was quiet, too quiet. Not even crickets. Behind him, the door creaked open. His best friend Mark stepped out, smiling that same pasted-on smile. Glitched out for a second, Mark said softly. Ethan's stomach twisted. He turned to face him, ready to demand answers, ready to scream. But then he saw it. Mark's hand. The fingers twitched in a strange, insect-like pattern, bending backward too far, curling and uncurling in a rhythm no human joint should allow. The skin around the knuckles rippled, like something alive was pressing against it from beneath. Ethan staggered back. "What the hell are you?" he whispered. Mark's smile widened, and for the first time Ethan noticed the edges of his teeth weren't quite straight. They glimmered in the moonlight, sharp and wet. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat in his car outside his apartment, engine off, lights out, just staring at the darkened windows of his building. And then he saw them. Through the blinds of his neighbor's unit, shadows moving. 4, maybe 5 figures. They stood facing each other in a circle, not talking, not moving, just standing. Then, as if someone had given a silent signal, they all began to speak at once. Ethan cracked his window to hear, heart pounding. The voices rose together, repeating the same words again and again. "You've always loved these, haven't you? You've always loved these, haven't you?" The exact phrase his mother had used. The same tone, the same rhythm. Over and over. It wasn't conversation, it was practice. They were rehearsing. Ethan clapped his hand over his mouth to keep from making a sound. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just his family. It was bigger, much bigger. The next morning, Ethan tried to act normal. He went to work, sat through meetings, forced himself to focus on emails. But once, just once, he glanced up at his boss and caught it. Her face slipped. It was only for half a second, but he saw the skin around her jaw ripple, like a loose mask shifting over something beneath. The color drained from her cheeks, her features blurring, then snapping back into place. She noticed him staring, and she smiled. Too wide. "You're looking strong today, Ethan." The exact phrase his father had used. He mumbled something and excused himself, rushing to the bathroom. He locked himself in a stall, fighting the urge to vomit. From the other side of the door, a voice called out. Friendly, casual. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" Ethan's blood ran cold. It wasn't his boss's voice. It was his mother's. Ethan splashed cold water on his face, gripping the sink until his knuckles turned white. When he looked up, the mirror gave him no comfort. Because the reflection wasn't quite right. His own face stared back, but the eyes were wrong, slightly off-center, too bright, too wide. They blinked out of sync with his own, just a fraction late, like a bad video feed. He staggered back, heart thundering. The reflection didn't move with him. It just watched. Then, slowly, its lips began to move. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" Ethan spun, desperate to find someone behind him, but the bathroom was empty. When he looked back again, the mirror showed only his real reflection, sweating, trembling, and terrified. He couldn't tell anymore if he was losing his mind, or if the world around him had already been replaced. That night, Ethan left the TV on, hoping the noise would help him sleep. But sometime after midnight, the picture flickered. The sitcom laugh track cut off mid-giggle, and the screen filled with static. Through the crackle, faces emerged. Blurry, half-formed, but familiar. his sister, his parents, Mark. All staring directly at the camera. All smiling that same fixed smile. They spoke in unison, their voices layered and distorted. "Good to see you, Ethan. You're looking strong." His chest tightened. He grabbed the remote, tried to change the channel. Every station was the same. Different backgrounds, different settings, but always the same people, the same voices, the same lines. Finally, he yanked the plug from the wall. The screen went black, but in the reflection of the dead screen, he could still see them. Still smiling. Still watching. Ethan's phone rang just past dawn. The caller ID said Mom. He almost let it go to voicemail, but some part of him needed to hear her voice, needed to believe she was still real. He answered, "Mom." A long pause. Then, in that too even tone, "You've always loved these, haven't you?" His breath caught. "Stop. Just stop saying that. Please." Another pause. Then, his father's voice came on the line. "Good to see you, son. You're looking strong." Ethan's hands trembled so badly, he nearly dropped the phone. He pressed it to his ear again, only to hear Mark's voice now, layered on top of the others. Glitched out for a second. The three phrases repeated, overlapping, cycling, until they blurred into an insectal hum that drilled straight into his skull. Ethan hurled the phone against the wall. It shattered, pieces skittering across the floor. The sound stopped, but from the jagged, broken screen, he swore he could still hear faint whispers leaking out. By evening, Ethan decided he couldn't stay in his apartment. He needed answers, or at least human contact that didn't feel rehearsed. He drove to his coworker Julia's house. She was sharp, grounded, one of the few people he trusted. When she opened the door, relief hit him like air after drowning. "Julia," he gasped. "Thank God. I think something's wrong with everyone. I can't explain." But then she tilted her head, smiled. Too wide. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" His stomach dropped. No, not you too." Her smile held steady, but her voice shifted, layering with others, overlapping. His mother's, his father's, Mark's. "Good to see you, son. You're looking strong." Glitched out for a second. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" Behind her, in the shadows of the house, other figures began to step forward. Dozens of them. All smiling. All waiting. Ethan staggered back down the porch steps, pulse screaming in his ears. The world felt suddenly smaller. More crowded. Ethan ran. He didn't remember getting back into his car, didn't remember starting it. Only the blinding panic that drove him down one street after another, tires squealing. In the rearview mirror, headlights followed. Too many. At least 4 cars, maybe more, keeping perfect distance, perfect formation. No one tried to pass. No one fell behind. At a red light, he risked a glance to the side. Another car pulled up next to him. Inside, his sister, smiling. His parents in the back seat, smiling. Their mouths moved in eerie unison, forming the words he couldn't hear but already knew. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" The light turned green. He floored it, heart hammering. But no matter which turns he took, sharp left, sudden right, the headlights stayed behind, keeping pace like predators in a silent hunt. The city around him felt abandoned. Empty streets, empty sidewalks, as though the whole world had already been cleared out, leaving only them. And him, the last one left. Ethan swerved off the main road, barreling into the woods on a narrow dirt trail he barely remembered from childhood. Branches scraped the car, headlights jittering over twisted trunks. For a moment, just a moment, he thought he'd lost them. He cut the engine and sat in the darkness, chest heaving. The silence was deafening. Then, faintly, from the trees around him, voices. Dozens of them. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" "Good to see you, Ethan. You're looking strong." Glitched out for a second. They came from every direction, overlapping, multiplying. The trees themselves seemed to whisper. He stumbled out of the car, crashing through underbrush, deeper into the woods. His flashlight beam swung wildly, catching on bark, branches, shadows, until it landed on something that froze him in place. Carved into the trunk of a tree, deep and deliberate. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" The letters weren't carved once. They were layered, dozens, hundreds of times, etched over and over until the bark was nothing but gouged repetition. And then another tree. And another. The forest was full of them. Ethan's breath came in ragged bursts as he pushed deeper into the forest. His flashlight beam flickered across more trees. each one scarred with the same phrase, until the words seemed to pulse in his vision. Then he froze. Between the trunks, dozens of pale figures stood in silence. Their faces were familiar: his mother, his sister, Mark, Julia, but multiplied, repeated. Identical copies, standing shoulder to shoulder, perfectly still. They didn't move, didn't speak, only stared. Ethan's beam shook as he swung it across the crowd. And with every sweep, he noticed something worse. The faces didn't stay. One moment, it was his sister's face. The next, his father's. Then a stranger's, morphing like projections on blank skin. Finally, in the hush of the woods, a single voice rose. "You're looking strong." And then all of them joined in, the words spilling out like static through broken speakers. "You're looking strong. You're looking strong. You're looking strong." The sound swelled, vibrating through his bones, until he clamped his hands over his ears and ran blind into the dark. Hours later, maybe minutes, time had lost meaning. Ethan stumbled out of the forest and onto a deserted road. A sign ahead glowed faintly in the dark. "County Hospital, 2 miles." Relief nearly buckled his knees. A hospital meant people. Real people. Doctors, nurses. Someone who could help. He half ran, half crawled through the emergency entrance. The lobby was eerily quiet, but the fluorescent lights hummed, and the receptionist looked up from her desk. For the first time in days, Ethan almost cried. "Please," he gasped. "You have to help me. Something's happening. Everyone I know, they're not." The receptionist stood, too slowly, too smoothly. Her face tilted at an unnatural angle as she smiled. "Good to see you, Ethan. You're looking strong." Behind her, from every hallway, every doorway, nurses and doctors emerged. Their shoes squeaked in perfect unison on the tile. Their eyes glowed faintly under the buzzing lights. And together, they began to chant. "You've always loved these, haven't you? You've always loved these, haven't you?" Ethan backed toward the doors, but they slid shut with a mechanical hiss. Locked. He was surrounded. Hands grabbed Ethan, cold, too strong, too many. They dragged him down gleaming hallways, past rooms where patients lay perfectly still, eyes wide open, mouths moving in silent repetition. They hauled him into an operating theater. A bright light flared overhead, blinding. Shadows of masked figures leaned over him, instruments glinting in their hands. "Please," he begged, thrashing. "I'm not one of you. I'm not." A doctor leaned close, mask slipping just enough for Ethan to see the skin ripple beneath. The face beneath wasn't human. Not even close. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" It whispered, breath hot and wrong. The others echoed, a chorus building to a deafening roar. The words weren't just sound anymore. They vibrated through his skull, through his bones, drilling into him. Then came the scalpel, cold against his temple, and in the reflection of the metal blade, Ethan saw himself. But for a fraction of a second, his own face rippled too. Ethan woke in a hospital bed, head pounding. His vision swam, ceiling tiles blurring above him. For a moment he thought it had been a nightmare, until he saw the restraints on his wrists and ankles. A figure leaned over him. Mark. Smiling. "You glitched out for a second." "No." Ethan whispered, struggling against the straps. "You're not real. None of you are real." Mark tilted his head. His eyes flickered, briefly showing black voids instead of pupils. "You're real enough." From the corner of the room, Ethan heard his parents' voices in unison. "Good to see you, son. You're looking strong." The lights above him buzzed louder, and Ethan realized they weren't lights at all. The panels flickered, and behind them he glimpsed movement. Dozens of dark shapes pressed against the thin plastic, watching. The restraints tightened on their own, as though responding to his heartbeat. And in the silence between chants, Ethan finally heard what he'd been dreading. A voice. His own. Repeating softly, over and over. "You've always loved these, haven't you?" Ethan thrashed against the restraints until the skin on his wrists burned. He had to see, had to know. "Show me what you are," he screamed at Mark. For the first time, Mark's smile faltered. His face rippled, skin shivering like heat haze. Then it peeled back, literally peeled, like latex sliding off. Beneath was not bone or muscle but a shifting surface of liquid black, studded with faintly glowing points like stars. The others followed suit. His parents. The doctors. Their faces sagged, slid away, exposing the same endless darkness beneath. They leaned closer, voices merging into a single, bone-shaking vibration. You are one of us, Ethan. You always have been. No, Ethan gasped, his vision blurred with panic and disbelief. I'm human. The chorus deepened. You've always loved these, haven't you? The restraints loosened suddenly. His hands were free. His legs too. But when he sat up, he realized. He hadn't moved them. Something else had. Ethan stumbled off the bed, but his legs didn't feel like his own. They bent too smoothly, too easily, like joints on a machine. His skin crawled, literally crawled, rippling across his arms in waves. No, he whispered, clawing at his forearm. The skin stretched unnaturally under his fingers, slick and pliant, like rubber over water. When he pulled, it shifted, revealing for the briefest instant the same black, star-dotted void he'd seen beneath their masks. Mark stepped closer, calm and patient, as though watching a child realize a simple truth. You see now? The disguise was always yours too. Ethan shook his head violently, nails digging into his arm until blood should have flowed. But instead, thick black fluid seeped out, glimmering with faint pinpricks of light. The chorus rose again, surrounding him. You're looking strong, Ethan. You're looking strong. You're looking strong. Each repetition pressed against him like a physical weight. He screamed, but the sound that tore from his throat wasn't human anymore. Ethan collapsed to his knees, clutching his shifting skin. His head felt split open, not from pain, but from something forcing its way in, memories. Not his. Or maybe they had always been his. Images flashed in rapid succession, standing among the dark void things, countless and infinite, choosing a role, a human mask, before descending into the world of flesh, practicing lines, the same rehearsed phrases, until they became second nature. You've always loved these, haven't you? Good to see you, son. You're looking strong. The memories tightened around his mind like a net. He hadn't met them by chance. He hadn't been infiltrated. He had been one of them all along, embedded, living among humans as long as he could remember. Only now, his disguise was breaking. And for the first time, he wasn't sure which version of his life was the lie. The figures closed in around him, their hollow star-flecked faces leaning near. Ethan's body shook, his own skin sliding like fabric ready to be shed. Mark crouched beside him, voice low, almost tender. You can stop fighting now. Join us. Take your place. Ethan's thoughts spun. If the memories were real, then everything, his childhood, his family, every laugh, every dinner, was nothing but rehearsal. His entire human life, a script. But another part of him clung desperately to the scraps of feeling that still seemed real. The smell of rain on asphalt, the burn of coffee too hot, the ache of missing someone he loved. Were those just implants, or had they meant something? The chorus swelled, vibrating through the walls, the floor, his own ribs. You've always loved these, haven't you? His hands trembled as he reached for his face. The skin felt loose, ready to peel away. He had to choose, accept what he was, or tear the mask away and risk what lay underneath. Ethan dug his nails into his own cheek. The skin stretched, then split, peeling back like wet paper. The blackness beneath pulsed, alive, riddled with tiny lights like galaxies pressed into flesh. The figures around him cheered, not with voices, but with a sound like wind rushing through 1,000 mouths. Mark's form melted fully, no longer pretending to be human. See? You were never one of them. You were always us. But Ethan's scream cut through the roar. He clawed deeper, ripping at the mask, desperate to find something else beneath. His mind clung to fragments. His sister's laugh before it turned mechanical, his father's hand heavy on his shoulder, the warmth of a summer evening that felt too vivid to be fake. The black liquid gushed from his face, pooling at his feet, and for a split second, he swore he saw something beneath even that. Not stars. Not void. Something red. Something human. The chorus faltered. For the first time, the voices around him broke rhythm. Ethan tore harder, his nails raking deep, black fluid splattering across the floor. And then it ripped. A piece of the void peeled away like a film, and beneath it gleamed raw, red muscle, wet and unmistakably human. He staggered back, gasping, blood mixing with the black liquid. I'm not you, he whispered. I never was. The star-flecked figures recoiled, their faces glitching, folding in on themselves like broken projections. Their chorus stuttered, voices collapsing into static. Mark stepped forward, trembling, his void face flickering with something close to fear. It isn't possible. The masks don't hide humans. They create them. There is no real. But Ethan's skin, what remained of it, glowed red in the sterile light. His breath steamed, warm and ragged. His eyes burned with something none of them could mimic. Life. The chorus collapsed into silence. Every figure froze, staring. And Ethan, dripping black in blood, realized the truth that shattered them all. He was the only actual human among them. The disguise had never been theirs. It had been his.